flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Everything in here is being recorded. Roll call.
Ed,
Yep.
Tom,
Yep.
Tammy. Yes. Kathy,
Yep.
Doug.
Yep.
Public partic.
Wait. Bid.
Oh, we gotta open the bid. Okay. This is a bid proposal. Equipment rental, personal, and contract when executed. Schedule of equipment. Chippers, pneumatic rollers, 5 axle dumps with operators, supervision. Estimate 80 hours. Okay. It's from Seacoat Corporation in Bentonville. There's their insurance information. All right, that's insurance information. Must be that one that has the,
Is there one C4? Or those are the ones we did today?
3 estimated totals. We have to add all that up. 9,000 for the chippers, the chipper, no. 8640 for the pneumatic rollers. 24,000 for 5 triaxles, and 3,400 for supervision.
That's 4540.
Here, you can look at it. You wanna look at it?
We have, with all the bonds in there as well.
Yeah. The insurance stuff
Yeah,
is.
the insurance is there, the bonds.
Workman's comp. Bid bond.
There you go, yep.
The rest was insurance stuff.
Right.
You wanna look at it, Dawn?
Let me just make sure I got the numbers in.
We did it.
You told me. Yeah.
Just for you guys that don't know, this is for tarring and chipping.
45,000.
You wanna look at it?
I just was gonna see the date that they said.
That's
That's
right.
by
I
15th
double checked it.
of September, correct? And then it'll be completed by 15th of September.
Yeah, they're starting the 15th and October 1st will be the end date.
What's the liquid fuels cutoff?
Generally, it's September 15th, but they felt it wouldn't be an issue. They particularly had this problem last year when there was a lot of rain, and they allowed them to extend the deadlines.
We have something from PennDOT that says that.
No.
Mr. Schuster?
You asked me, you find out if you have something from PennDOT?
No, that we, exceeding the deadline that's PennDOT having this completed. To expend liquid fuels, you have to be complete by September 15th.
And they're not gonna start until the 15th.
Well, what I would suggest is that this
We could award a pending, I guess.
be held, yes, until we contact PennDOT and find out if they're gonna allow us.
I asked about that, and, they said they will grant extensions. And,
So, I mean, assuming that the board
We
wishes
can do-
to accept this bid, you
Yeah.
would
Contin-
continue.
Contingent
on.
upon the receipt of the PennDOT documentation that says that.
all right. So what was the total, 48,
40,
45.
45.
40.
45, 40.
45, 40? Anybody want to make a motion?
Is that the only one?
Yeah.
You don't have a choice, do you? I'll move that we accept that proposal contingent upon the receipt of a letter of okay from PennDOT. Can extend their deadline dates.
I'll second. You got, so we got, motion. Contingent on getting an extension. Any discussion? How do you vote?
Tom,
Yes.
Tammy,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Ed,
Yeah.
5 yes, motion carried.
Okay. Public comment on agenda items only. Everybody? Okay, can we jump them up?
You want to? You're the boss.
Yeah. There ain't no sense in them having to sit through this misery.
No, it's not misery at all.
All right, we're gonna have a presentation from Capri.
So do you want us to stay here and?
You can roam around, shake hands, whatever you want.
So I'll stand for a couple minutes and then probably sit down, but I want everybody to be able to hear. So we want to thank you for having us come in today to talk about some exciting possibilities for our area here, for Claysville and for Donegal. What we are is a group effort, it's a team effort. We have the Claysville Area Preservation Revitalization Initiative, otherwise known as Capri. We have the Claysville Area Business Association. And then we have CT Consulting. So it's kind of a collaboration of efforts, putting us together. We want to thank you for having us come in and kind of talk about this and see how we can all work together. So basically what we want to do is just kind of go through the slides that you have, talk about it a little bit, and then open it up for some questions at the end, and then see where we go from there. Okay? So we have, this is a plan for revitalization. Anytime you want to do something major, you want to have a master plan. So I have Rick Newton here with me from the Business Association and Rich Cleveland from CT Consulting. They're going to jump in at different points as well. Okay? If you look at the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about how we got here, what we kind of figured out from this, what we've learned. We're going to talk about the questions that we have and maybe questions that you have, talk about where we're going to go next, and then talk about, at the end, there are some pictures and some possibilities, some things to imagine. So if you turn to the page that looks like this, how did we get here? Basically, we had applied for funding from the LSA several times. And we had some mixed results with that. Sometimes we were successful, we got the money, other times we did not. So last year, Capri and Business Association decided to have somebody from the Redevelopment Authority come out and talk to us a little bit about what we could do differently, where we needed to be focusing, and what kinds of things were getting money and what we should be doing. So we had Nate Wojtek come out from the Redevelopment Authority and talk with us. That was early in the spring. Just kind of discussing things that we could be doing. And what we found from that was that we needed to have a bigger plan. Something a little bit larger, a little grander, basically set our sights a little bit higher. And we needed to collaborate and to work together with the other entities in the area. So that would be the Borough of Claysville and the Township, Donegal. So we talked about that. Then we brought in CT Consultants because Nate Wojtek had mentioned that that was a way that a lot of people are going, is bringing in the consultants, having them come in and talk to us. This is what they do, and kind of move in that direction. So that was our next step. And then what we found out, if you look to the next page, is that there's hope. There are people out there in communities that are doing major projects and on a grand scheme and doing really big things over a number of years. And there are a couple pictures there that show Youngsville, Jamestown, and Slippery Rock, and those are all in Pennsylvania, and they all have slightly lower populations, but they're doing big things. And we have some pictures at the end that are going to show you some of the changes that have been made to those communities. What else we learned is that you have to have that plan. You have to have a big plan, and you have to kind of look at it systematically and have everybody on the same page. So we looked at these kinds of funds that we would need, and we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, we're talking in the millions. So there's a lot of money out there to be had, and these other communities got money. So if you look at the next page, you can see Youngsville got $2 million, Jamestown 3.3, Slippery Rock 5.4. So that's a lot of money to be had out there. This is where the CT Consultants is so important, is because they have a grasp on that. They know where to go for the funding, how to leverage that, and they do a lot of the grant writing. We still needed a master plan. That's also where they come in. They help us to develop that through community meetings, discussions, collaboration, and we try to look at all of that. And then CT Consulting will help with that. Some of the things that would benefit the community on the next page, talking about infrastructure. You look specifically at Claysville downtown, and you look at the overhead wires, the sidewalks, flooding that occurs because the road is level with the sidewalk. And so those are some of the things to do, but also things about safety. We want to look at safety, create jobs if that's a possibility, and promote tourism. You can read through all of those.
You're doing good, Judy.
All right, so,
I think the main point here is that just beyond making things look good and the infrastructure, it actually catalyzes economic development. And we're seeing that in other communities that are attracting this funding. Yes, they're able to make things look so much better and improve the quality of life within their areas, but that in turn spurs a lot of economic development and people who want to put their money that may be on the sidelines into play. And so that's a main factor in the benefits that you're going to get when you invest this kind of effort in revitalization.
so we looked initially at that Main Street in Claysville, but understanding that Main Street in Claysville is very short, and the ends are Donegal Township. So looking at that and seeing what kinds of things can be done, how far can we go? Can we go down to where the gas station is? Can we go out to the cemetery? Can we go out to the community park? What ways we could go with that? These are all conversations we'll have, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cleveland and let him talk to you a little bit about the next few pages But this is what they do. He and his partner Paul came out and talked with us. We met with them, and I'm gonna let him talk a little bit about some of the things that you can do.
I'm Rich Cleve with CT Consultants. I manage an office for CT in Washington, PA. Their headquarters are in Mentor, Ohio. We have 12 offices in Ohio, one in Florence, Kentucky, and one in Nashville. I provided you a pamphlet that kind of shows our process and what we do in a number of communities that we've helped in the eastern United States. Our process to developing a master plan for revitalization has 3 steps. We have a public hearing. We invite the public to come and document the existing conditions of the area that will be outlined in a scope, and take the public's comments on what they'd like to see in their downtown and develop a preliminary plan from that. Step 2 is conceptual design from those ideas, and we'll develop preliminary recommendations and have another public hearing to present those to the public and make changes where necessary or additions where necessary. And then 3 is the final report that we will have another public hearing and actually present that to mayor and council, and also provide in that a use and source of funds for the project. So throughout the planning process, we'll develop a line item spreadsheet that shows the total cost of the project. And once we know what that cost is, we'll talk and develop a probable phased approach to the project. And whatever each phase is, develop a use and source of funds. Where those fund sources will come from, what grants, what foundations, what fundraising, what participation, if any, from Claysville and whoever else. So we'll develop that, we'll help set that up, we'll help with the grant writing where needed, and get those applications in.
By the way, Rich isn't going to toot his own horn, but he's done this on numerous occasions in multiple cities, not just in Pennsylvania, but Ohio and beyond, including the city of Washington.
Right.
He used to be with the Redevelopment Authority. He's the one who mentored Nate Wojtek, and then he went into the private sector after he finished the revitalization. So
Right.
He's got a lot of experience in this area.
Yeah, Rick mentioned currently we have projects in Indiana, Jamestown, Youngsville, Warren, Conneaut Lake, Elwood City, Newcastle. So there's quite a few areas that we have downtown revitalization projects ongoing. So the plan during that process, the grant sources want to see that these plans are being driven by a steering committee. And right now, Rick is working with his group to put together that steering committee that should be made up of elected officials, business owners, residents, potentially the school district. And that group would be the group steering this plan and presenting the public meetings. So that's one reason we're here tonight, is to make you aware of that. And how that steering committee will work. And from that, cooperation agreement will be developed for the partners, which could be, but could be different than what I'm about to state. Could be the steering committee, Claysville, and also Donegal would be right now the partners in this plan and project moving forward.
It can't be understated how important it is for all these entities to come together. So we've already talked to the borough, the Claysville borough. They're excited. I mean, one of the things that this is doing is giving us hope in the area that we can actually make some significant improvements in the area, not just in Claysville proper, but in the area that extends to the community park, to the rails to trails throughout Donegal Township. We really believe if we're going to do something and do something big and important, it's got to involve Donegal Township, and that's why we're here, is because we want you to be aware of what we've been learning, and we want you to be involved as much as possible, because if if you're not, and if we don't get the township residents, not just the borough residents, together on this, it's not gonna be successful. That's one of the things that we learned is every single one of these communities that saw long-lasting transformation had a joint government, business, school district, community partnership that affected these changes. So that's really why we're here today, is just to educate you about what we've learned so far, answer any questions that you may have, and then also ask for your participation on this steering committee. Recognizing the steer is just going to keep things moving, but the public's going to have a lot of input throughout the entire process. But you do need to have some community leaders who have is that the best interest of the community at heart as part of that steer.
So at this point, if anybody has questions, we can do some of that, and then we can go through the remainder of the handout. Do you have questions for us at this point, or?
I do, Betty Shingle from Stelly. Would you be talking about maybe doing something with some of the Main Street thing, those old, I don't know, y'all remember when Jackie Walker was here and revitalized the community? We need that. Would we be able to do something with some of those old
In West
housing?
Alexander?
Yes.
And
I
that's,
mean, we need some revitalization. I think it's a great plan. And look at the things that Newton has done in Claysville. They're obvious to all of us. So I think it's, I was just wondering, would that be something that you would be looking at including?
Well,
Is it something like that?
I'll defer to Rich, but I think, so first of all, we have to start somewhere. But I think anything, and actually almost everything that we do within Claysville, which is kind of where we want to start, can absolutely be applied to West Alexander.
Okay.
I'd love to see West Alexander return back. I mean, I grew up in West Alec when it was,
Yeah.
when that Main Street was just that wonderful
Shops,
old shops and
yeah.
stuff like that. So there's opportunities here. But we gotta start somewhere, and if we make it too big, it might get too
Yeah.
unwieldy. So we're thinking if we start small, create a good model, then it's something that both West Alexander, even Taylorstown, other communities can use as a model, is what we're thinking.
Thank you.
But the Main Street program is part of some of the funds that we'd be able to tap into.
Okay.
I have a question on the matching funds.
Yeah.
How would that, how's that work? How would that,
Well, what our job is, or our goal, is to make the least amount of burden on the municipality to have to come up with the match. One fortunate thing that you've mentioned, or that we mentioned tonight, is that LSA funds are available to Washington County communities. Well, the one thing nice about LSA is you can use that as match for all the grants. Most state grants cannot be used to match state grants. Federal grants can match state, state can match federal. So as we go ahead and earmark what the match requirement is, what I try to do is minimize that match requirement that would be a burden to you, the municipality.
not to start a feud, but this, majority of this is gonna take place in the borough of Claysville. Is matching funds like on a percentage basis, or you see what I'm getting at?
100%, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the requirement right now would be, I couldn't answer that.
yeah.
It could be, even though we're including, part of the township in the project, that doesn't mean that you'll have a financial commitment to do that. But as we move through the plan and come up with a cooperation agreement, that definitely will probably come up. How are we gonna do this? How will we work that out? So that'll be something that will be addressed. But like I said, we try to minimize that. You see in the 3 communities shown, the money that Slippery Rock got, the college, of course, they have a college, that's where most of the match came from. Youngsville is very similar to the communities we're talking about now. They were able to match state and federal, but they had their steering committee raised $350,000 in that small community. And match, they still have money in account to do the next phase, but some of the match came out of that fundraising event, or events. And then Jamestown very small commitment. They got a federal grant, and we're able to match the state grant with theirs. But they did put in around 80,000 of their own money for matching dollars to secure the dollars shown, which are pretty substantial.
Yeah.
But I would say two things, that, one, I agree with you 100%. I mean, to whom the benefit goes should carry the burden of the financial responsibility. A lot of these matching, these funding sources are gonna require, they wanna see money coming from the governmental agency, so there has to be some skin in the game, but like Rich said, he's gonna try to minimize that as much as possible.
And there are fundraising opportunities as well that could alleviate some of that burden.
The second thing I want to say is, and because I love Donegal Township, but at the same time, we want to start with Claysville, because we think, if you look at it, in the entire McGuffey School District, it's the only downtown that we have in the entire McGuffey School District. Yeah, there's businesses here, and there's a little pocket of something there, and so we think that that's going to be good for the entire community, and for the entire township. So we do want to start there, and so we do believe that what's good for Claysville, even though they'll get most of the funding for infrastructure and stuff, is good for the broader community, especially those that live in Donegal.
And the redevelopment authority has a program too that's dealt through Nate Boytek. And if you have blighted structures on the main street and things like that, you can work with Nate. He'll help you get the blighted structures taken care of. So that's another program that's available through the redevelopment authority, and it'll really, it's not hard to see that you need it. But he'll be able to work with you. He's a very good source for information and work to do on how to do it too.
Any other questions?
I have a question on like timeline of the entire process. I do see a rough draft here. I just was curious on what you guys have seen in previous communities that you have done as far as what kind of timeline it takes to develop a plan, and then moving forward, how long does it actually take to execute a plan? I'm assuming most of that, depends on funding, but what have you guys seen in some of your previous communities?
The planning process takes between 9 and 10 months. And then after that, I mean, we've had projects, we've been in communities over 10 to 12 years. Franklin, Tennessee to be the most recent one. I think we're on our 6th phase. And it's been 15 years of a relationship doing that. So it can vary. Youngsville, we did that project in a year, the first phase, and now we're working on the second phase of securing funding and moving forward. So it just depends on the project, but we've had good relationships with the communities and have been there for a while. Washington, we just finished phase 3, and that's been 10, 12-year project, those 3 phases.
It's a good question.
I got a question for you. What's the cost of the consulting end of it, and is that applicable to funding?
Well, good question. We're actually not under contract yet, but we're preparing a contract for Rick to review, and how that moves forward will be yet to be seen. But if we secure grant dollars, they can't just hire CT to do the design work. They're gonna have to go through a request for qualifications or a request for proposals to secure qualifications and potentially price to do the design work and the inspection work. So, we're very grateful if we get a shot to do the plan, but we definitely make our money doing the design end of it. But they're using the grant funds, we know there's just no guarantee that's gonna be us. So, good question.
So for a town of our size, it's anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000. And let me know if I'm speaking out of turn, in that range to put together a revitalization plan. So,
And is that, the second part of the question was like, can you use funding or grants
yes,
as part to pay for that as
absolutely,
well?
100%, 100%.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Now, you said there'll be a steering committee that's in charge of this.
Really coming
So-
out of Capri, out of the Claysville Area
Out of-
Preservation Revitalization Initiative.
So if we move to the next steps, really, because some of these questions are kind of falling into that, so on the next page with the next steps, talking about the steering committee, forming the steering committee, and that is one of the reasons that we're here tonight, is to ask for you to send a representative from the township to be on that committee, so that you would have representation on the steering committee. And we just have kind of outlined there on number one, how we thought that it might play out with representation. That's not a fixed number, but it's just something that we kind of came up with, looking at some of the other areas and the entities that we have that we think would be involved, and we'd like to be involved.
Where are you at?
On next steps, it's blue.
Bottom
Page
left-hand corner, number 11, slide 11. It says next step.
There's two borough, one township, one school.
Page 11, Ed.
Those are some of the recommendations
very
from.
Next steps in the blue.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
where do
the
we
kind
go
of
from
mix
there?
that CT Consultants has seen successful. We're not, hard and fast into those numbers, but that's, again, in terms of the people who are going to be putting the most skin in the game, that's kind of what we were thinking would be a good representation.
And so when you're looking for someone to put on the steering committee, people that you would want to think about would be people who really have an investment in the community, who are willing to put in for this long term, because it could be a long project, willing to commit to those meetings, that's important. But some of the skills, obviously, having grant writing is important, to having that, having some type of design skills sometimes is important. Whether it's financial, anything like that. Somebody with some kind of skills that could lend to the committee.
Communication, and so we would be looking for someone from the township that can not only contribute to the committee, but then would be the voice of what's happening, the status of how that's progressing month over month to the township at these meetings.
And that's really our first step, and then that's what we're looking for from you. Just kind of say, yes, we're interested in this, we're going to put somebody on the steering committee. And then we have to kind of start looking